Hey, this is Rob Burman, and you're looking to the Movie Raid Show.
It's time for the Movie Raid. Tonight's victim is special effects as well as makeup effects artist. Rob Burman has done many films such as the 1995 Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and John Carpenter's The Thing, amongst many others. Hello.
Many others. My gosh, I think I've got a resume that's 12 pages long. I look back at it and I'm thinking, how could I have done all of those things? If I average it out in the number of years that I've been doing it, I'm like, that comes to 10 or 15 shows a year, and I don't think I did that.
Now you have your own school. I mean, you also had outside the country, and you also have in California. Do you have multiple schools throughout every other country, or do you kind of take it on the road, and then you kind of bring it back to your home base, so to speak?
Yeah, I keep it pretty much here in Los Angeles full time, but then occasionally people will sponsor a class somewhere else, and I call it my traveling classroom. Lately, the last, half dozen years or so, I've been doing Vienna and Berlin and Cologne and, that kind of thing. Just trying to expound my information the best I can to people that want to know.
You have, various techniques for yourself, and what kind of do you actually teach? Do you teach all varieties of it, or do you kind of have to section it for certain people that want to do it? I mean, or do you kind of just have certain programs or certain specials for people that might be interested in it?
I've got 3 main courses that I do. My 1-week course is sort of introductory to teach people that really have never done anything before. A lot of my students have never even picked up clay or done anything but play a video game. And since I never played video games or anything, I teach them how to sculpt and make mold and do the lab end of things. My 1 week introduces you to that. My 2-week takes you deeper into that and shows you a little bit more, and then I do pretty much a 4-week that I consider like a boot camp. That 4-week does a full head character makeup and puts people through their paces. I have my students come to me sometime in the 3rd week, and I ask them what they did the night before, and they said, I went home and went to bed. You are tough.
Do you also display some of your earlier works as an example when you first started? Do you include that, or do you just kind of give other beginner works? There was other projects like The Thing, for example, which is pretty big as far as production goes, and you had 2 companies involved with that. Having to work with that, would you use that, or would you say that's a little bit too advanced for those that are trying to break into the mold?
Well, I can talk about those things and show examples and things in class, but yeah, normally it's above their abilities. And to be honest, I really don't have much of anything from throughout my career that I could, other than photographs that I can use as examples of things. Back in my time, which was most of the 80s, you didn't have phones in your or you didn't have phones, you didn't have cameras in a phone, and you didn't have the ability to record all of that stuff. So most of those shows went by with, you do the job and you go home, and that's what it is. The notoriety that I have having worked on those, that kind of precedes me most of the time, and people ask me about it. But in class, I really show them examples of the work that I've done in classes.
When there's serious issues that might arise with the companies that you worked in, either past or present, and it does get a little crazy sometimes, especially with their talent, and when events, something like, for example, the Writers Guild strike or something, can this affect an artist as far as their vision goes, or even limit their skills based on events that occur like this in this profession? Or do you think that might kind of enhance it to where they might get even more work despite this?
I will say that when things like the strikes happen, that's when a lot of the people take the time to up their game and to come to me, and you've been a great basic makeup artist most of your career and you want to take it to that next level. Well, it's hard to do if you're working all the time. So when something like the strike comes up, people start taking classes and they go and improve themselves so that when the work comes back, they can come in guns a-blazing, knowing how to do, more than what they went away knowing.
Do you feel there's a difference between adapting to learn and learning to adapt on creations that artist only has some experience on, or even greater than them?
Yeah, that's kind of hard to say. I think that if they are smart and willing and open to growth, then they do. And if they are the kind of person that thinks that they know, oh, I know about that, I know what that's like, I know that thing, they're never going to learn.
What would you recommend when they've learned some of the skills that they feel satisfied with from you? What's the best area to really work in? Is it really best with like television, or should they stay independent, or should they go for certain mediocre productions within the rules and regulations that they're supposed to abide for?
That's also hard to say because everybody has their level of interest in what they want to do. I essentially tell everybody that, once you've learned something in my class, you should go home after you graduate from it and do it again, because if you don't do it again, you're going to forget what I taught you in sometimes a matter of weeks. It's so much information that you're getting, and so deep in knowledge that in a couple of weeks you're going to go, shit, how did we do that again? Shoot, I'm going to have to call Rob. And the nice thing is I never abandon a student, so they can call me back and ask me whatever they want. But if they're not doing it again in a short period of time, they will lose it, and then it's not going to be available for them when they do get that job. So if it means doing it on your own dime, that's one thing, go ahead and do that. But if all of a sudden you've got the opportunity to do a job where you've learned that, I say take it, go for it. Experience is all we get in this life, so you should have it.
When they get their first job, regardless if it's an independent film or anything in general, let's say it's a commercial or something, should they take that as their guidance with them, or should they just memorize what they can with the skills that they have learned, or even combine from other people they might have learned from other schools that they may have gotten into? Or do you think that might be a bad combination depending how they use this knowledge as a tool?
Every piece of knowledge is important for you, and just because I do something a certain way doesn't mean that everybody's going. You want to be good at it? Do it all the time. Do it every day for a year. You want to be good at anything, do it every day for a year. At the end of the year, you're going to know one of two things. That, wow, I'm pretty good at this and I know what I'm doing, or, maybe I should think of doing something else.
There's always different skills and different methods, and of course different technology, how to do these methods and techniques. And would you say sometimes there's at least with other artists, that it could be an era versus era aspect, considering you've worked through the 80s, which is a much different time compared to what, let's say, today, which we have much more advanced and more techniques and whatnot. But how did this affect you when you were working with this, and then having to adapt yourself and having to create your own unique ways, as well as teaching new people that want to learn as well?
The interesting thing about what I do is that it's still the same things that have been done for the last 100 years of film. It's still the same processes and still the same stuff. Occasionally the materials change and get better, and you kind of adapt to those and whatnot, but it's still the same. The things that I teach now are virtually the same way I learned doing them in the late 70s and, working for my dad. It's not really different. It's still all the same. The only thing different is they've got CGI in their toolbox if they want it. It's still rubber monsters. It's still painting people's faces. It's still playing with clay. It's all the same.
If you were to be, let's say you get a contract for numerous projects under one company, does that change any effect for you? Or as far as how you feel about them as well, since we are in a new era as well, and things like you said hasn't really changed for you, or the methods and anything else in general, how does that mentality would affect you working with this, with your experience as well as your skills on top of that?
What my experience has taught me is that what we do is a lot of work. It's very involved, and it's a big commitment, and it's even harder to do if you're not having a good time doing it. So I told everybody that it's got to be fun or I don't want to do it. I know plenty of people that will sacrifice their fun to do something that's miserable just because they think it's going to take them somewhere. And the truth is, those projects rarely take you anywhere. They're just, hard and difficult and beat you up pretty good. So my requirements now are, it's got to be fun or I don't want to do it.
A fine line between recreation connection creation and progression creation on some of these projects, or especially what they're learning from you?
Yes, and to me, it's always both of those things. I'm always trying to beat what I did last time. No matter what I'm doing, I'm trying to do it better than the last time that I did it, because that's the only way you grow, you know? It's important to make mistakes because that's how you learn. I tell my students that all the time. Don't do everything perfectly in class. Do your best, but you know, if you're making a mistake, don't beat yourself up for it, because you're learning why you don't want to do that next time.
But how can they be more self-identifiable using what they've had?
I think that becomes a personal thing for each person. Some people are very good at being creative designers and pulling something new out that's never been done before, and a lot of other people are following their paths of the people that have been there before them. You know, they may be creative and they may have great techniques and things like that. Their level of design work isn't always what they might want it to be. And some people are great copiers. Some people are great technicians. Some people are great designers. And I think that by doing the work, like I said, do it every day for a year. Continue doing it, and you're going to find out where you sit with that. You'll know where you are on the totem pole of life and what your abilities are. And, you know, you sell yourself to that. And that way people, you know, are following what they're capable of. And it's easier to be successful that way.
But using the same methods, can it also be almost a repeated mistake if they just keep reusing the same methods, even though they're effective, but if they reuse it on basically anything, or let's say a different project that is not exactly compatible, but they still use that? Do you think that can be a really dangerous combination if they try it?
Some people get locked into their methods without being willing to stretch and develop anew and things like that, and I understand that. I'm a little bit that way myself. I'm kind of a traditionalist, and I don't experiment on the job. I experiment between jobs, so that when I do get a job, I know what I'm doing and I'm not going to be wasting anybody's money or time.
When a company decides a different direction or vision of that artist on their work, or maybe uncredited for it because, you know, it could actually fracture or even change that artist's future's opportunity rather than the whole Hollywood or even outside of it.
Well, sure. Everybody's trying to reinvent the wheel and trying to figure out how to do the next best thing and not copy anybody else's things. You know, everybody's trying to be that unique person, and sometimes you'll fail, and sometimes it won't work, and sometimes that burns a bridge with the person you're trying to do it with. And again, that's why I don't experiment on the job. I do my things between the jobs so that when I do come in, I'm set and I'm capable and all of that. You know, some people will overpromise and then come up short and whatnot. And when you do, you've learned a big lesson. If you keep doing the same thing that doesn't work, you know, isn't that the definition of insanity?
When an artist wants to learn a specific set of techniques and just that from the material, just one specific, how much ground can that artist really cover in the industry today when there's all kinds of different things going on, and there's failures, but there's some success, and sometimes that success is not exactly always 100% either. Can it make them less of an artist just sign up for those specific techniques? And do you think they will go far with that at all?
As long as you pull off what you're trying to do and it's successful, then it worked. I think that because what we do is an art form, that it doesn't always work. Sometimes it's rewarding, and sometimes, you know, you kind of fall on your face and trip, and, you know, you have to be willing to do that in order to really grow and become more than what you are. You have to be willing to step off that ledge and hope for the best sometimes.
Do you believe in a little bit of a difference between effect and affect in this today's industry? It is a rough industry, but do you believe that these two are kind of strong characters for that artist, or do you think it just varies depending on how they proceed their goals in doing the projects in the industry?
Really, again, I think it comes down to being willing. You know, you're willing to put yourself out there and all of that, and you can affect change by being effective.
And it's always a changing industry. Do you think the more rapid the change, like, does that artist also has to feel inconstant in this profession? And again, it's not always guaranteed what they're going to get, but do you feel they have to be inconstant with the industry as they keep going with new this, new that, and try to stay relevant as well?
You know, staying relevant is a hard thing, especially in today's genre because there are so many different tools in people's toolboxes, and between CGI and artificial intelligence and all that stuff, there are so many different possibilities of what you can do and what you can use. The more you know, the more you can do, and I think that's a great thing. I step back from the industry mostly because I don't do digital work. I don't play into that sandbox. All my stuff is physical and right there, and don't take away from the people that can do all that other stuff. I think that it's great. In fact, if you do one part and the computer guy does another part and you put those two effects together and make them work, then it's better than either one of them individually, you know? So if you can do both, then that's great. You're going to be that much more valuable to the people who want to hire you.
Go ahead and plug in any websites or any projects or anywhere we can check out your school, or any web links or anything that we can check out for that to sign up and so forth.
Yeah, sure. Well, you can get a hold of my classes through Rob Burman's laboratory.com, and that's a great one. Otherwise, you can find me all over the internet. I've got 3 Instagram pages through Rubberware, which is our foam latex prosthetic company, and 2 Rob Burman pages, and I've got a couple of Facebook pages and all of that, just to be able to stay relevant and out there. Because, you know, to be honest, I don't do a whole lot of projects anymore. I'm very picky about the ones that I'm willing to sell my soul to do, and because of that, I need to keep myself relevant somehow, and by keeping myself in social media, people still know who I am all these years later without having to keep doing the next project and make that happen. I spend most of my time now, because of Rubberware, it pretty much keeps us afloat well enough and all of that, and because of that, I'm able to do my classes. You know, sometimes my classes are just one person. It becomes a one-on-one training with somebody, and they get, you know, the greatest education of their lives that way, because they're not sharing it with 15 other people and all of that. You know, it's just that's how I stay out there with my social media and my Rubberware company.
There you have it, everybody. That is special effects artist Rob Burman.
You know what was refreshing was that your questions are generally unique.